The city lay wrapped beneath a velvet blue sky, soft and shimmering as if sprinkled with powdered starlight, its quiet hum reduced to a distant murmur. The midnight air carried a strange magic, a silence thick enough to feel, a stillness that made every sound echo louder, every emotion feel heavier. Every heartbeat throb more clearly against the night. On the far edge of the riverside, where the old bridge curved like a silver bow over dark waters, Elara walked slowly. Her steps soft, her breath a mixture of cold air and restless thoughts. She had not planned to come here tonight. In truth, she had planned nothing at all except escape from noise. From memories that clung too tightly, from questions she could no longer answer. Her long dark coat fluttered behind her as the wind lifted it gently. Her hair, loose and slightly curled from the day's humidity, floated around her face like a halo of midnight bronze. The bridge had been a place of comfort once, years ago. When she would sit with her earphones in, watching life pass beneath her, imagining a future she felt too small to reach. Tonight, however, she wasn't seeking hope, she was simply seeking quiet. But quiet rarely comes alone, it often brings clarity with it. As she reached the center of the bridge, Elara exhaled slowly and leaned against the railing, her palms cold against the metal. The river below glimmered with reflections of street lamps, each golden ripple dancing like a mirror of forgotten wishes. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind kiss her cheeks and brush away the tension she hadn't realized she'd been holding. And then, without warning, she heard footsteps, steady, unhurried, approaching from behind. She didn't turn right away. After all, many people walked this bridge at night. But something about these footsteps felt familiar, almost as if the night carried them with a deliberate softness. When she finally turned her head, her breath caught, not in fear, but in an unexpected jolt of recognition. Standing a few feet away was Adrian, the one person she hadn't seen in years. The one person whose absence had left a quiet ache inside her. He looked older, in the gentle way time shapes someone, not harshly, but honestly. His tall frame was wrapped in a charcoal jacket, the collar upturned against the breeze. His hair, once messy and always falling over his eyes, was now slightly shorter yet still carried the same boyish charm. His dark eyes, warm, searching, a little surprised, locked onto hers. For a moment, neither spoke. Words felt too small for what hung between them, too simple for the weight of years and the nostalgia that suddenly filled the space like mist. Finally, Adrian gave a small smile, the kind that once made her chest flutter. "I didn't think I'd ever see you here again," he said, his voice low and gentle, like an echo from a dream she had tried to forget. Elara swallowed, her throat tight. "I didn't think I'd see you either." The wind carried her voice softly, as if cradling the fragile truth in her words. He stepped closer, not enough to cross boundaries, but enough that she felt the familiar warmth of his presence. The kind of warmth she once thought she'd never feel again. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like pages of a shared story waiting to be turned again. The river murmured beneath them, the city lights flickered like scattered fireflies, and in that fragile pocket of time, memories began to resurface, memories neither of them had spoken aloud, yet both carried like folded letters in the heart. Adrian leaned slightly against the railing, just beside her, leaving enough space to respect the distance time had created, but not so much that the moment felt cold. "You know," he murmured, keeping his gaze on the shimmering water, "I used to come here every night after you left." Elara's heart squeezed, sharp and soft at the same time. She didn't ask why, she knew. This bridge had always been more than metal and stone, it had been their refuge, their meeting point, their silent witness to late-night conversations and laughter that once felt like they belonged to another world. "What about now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned slightly, his expression warm yet touched with quiet vulnerability. "Now," he hesitated. "Now I don't come here as often. Life got busy. People changed. Places changed." He paused, his gaze softening. But tonight felt different. Elara exhaled. She understood. Some nights pull you toward places you don't expect, places your heart remembers before your mind does. They watched the river for a moment, letting the breeze tangle gently between them. The silence deepened, not heavy but full of words unsaid, full of feelings carved into the years between them. I missed this, Adrian finally said, breaking the quiet. She didn't need to ask what this meant. She felt it too, the ease, the warmth, the quiet companionship. The part of her that she had tucked away for so long stirred from its sleep. Her hands were cold, she tucked them into her coat pockets. Adrian noticed. He always noticed. Without a word, he removed one glove and held it out to her, not forcing, just offering. Ilara hesitated only a moment before accepting. Their fingers brushed lightly, electricity sparking through the contact, warm and sharp and painfully familiar. Still warm, she whispered, attempting a faint smile. Still dramatic, he teased softly. The laugh that escaped her surprised her, it had been so long since a laugh felt light instead of heavy. The wind picked up, rushing around them like a soft storm of memories. Ilara stepped a little closer, instinctively seeking warmth. Adrian didn't move away, he simply turned, gently positioning himself so the wind struck his back instead of hers. The gesture was small, almost ordinary, but it held the same quiet devotion he had once shown her years ago. Her chest tightened. "Why did we stop talking?" she asked, though it came out more fragile than she intended. Adrian exhaled, his breath visible in the cold night air. "Because we were young," he answered honestly. "Because we were scared. Because life pushed us in different directions. And maybe because neither of us said what we really wanted to say." Ilara looked up at him, the city lights painting soft gold across his face. "And what was that?" she whispered. Adrian met her eyes, steady, unshielded, real. "That I wasn't ready to lose you." Her breath hitched. The night thickened around them, the bridge suddenly feeling too small for the emotions swelling between them. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "You still haven't." The words slipped from her lips before she could stop them, truth raw and unfiltered. Adrian froze, his eyes widening just slightly, but only for a heartbeat before a soft, disbelieving joy began to rise in them. Slowly, gently, he reached out, not grabbing, not pulling, just lifting a hand toward her cheek. His fingers brushed her skin softly, reverently, as if touching a memory he'd longed to feel again. She closed her eyes, leaning into the warmth. The world around them seemed to fade, the city dropping away into nothing but distant glimmers. Everything narrowed to the sound of their breathing, the warmth of his hand on her cheek, and the quiet thundering of their hearts echoing in the cool night air. For a long moment, they simply stood there, no rush, no fear, no need to pretend they weren't feeling exactly what pulsed silently between them. Ilara opened her eyes slowly, finding Adrian looking at her the way he used to, like she was a rare moment the universe had whispered into existence just for him. The tenderness there, the unspoken affection, the gentle ache of longing, all of it washed over her like a tide she had once resisted but no longer wished to fight. "Ilara," he whispered, her name trembling slightly on his tongue, "may I?" He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't have to. She understood. 1,000 times, she understood. Instead of answering with words, she stepped closer, closing the last fragile inches between them. The wind stirred around them as if holding its breath. Her hands slid from her pockets slowly, almost shyly, and she let them rest lightly on his chest where his heartbeat thudded steady and warm beneath his coat. Adrian inhaled sharply at the touch, his hand still cupping her cheek, thumb brushing her skin as though memorizing the moment. Their foreheads met first, soft, slow, natural, like two puzzle pieces finding the shape they were always meant to fill. Their breaths mingled, warm against the cold. She felt him trembling just slightly, not from the wind but from the overwhelming undeniability of what was happening. "I've waited so long for this," he breathed. Her heart fluttered violently. "Me too." Their lips met, not with haste or desperation, but with a quiet reverence that made the moment feel almost sacred. It was a kiss layered with every emotion they had carried across the years, longing, apology, hope, rediscovery. His kiss was warm, gentle, and grounding, as though anchoring her to a part of herself she had once forgotten. She melted into him, her fingers curling slightly in the fabric of his coat, pulling him closer. Adrian's other hand slid to her waist, steady, reassuring, not possessive but protective, guiding her into the warmth of his embrace. The world blurred around them, the river's soft hum, the distant city lights, the cold wind, none of it mattered anymore. For the first time in years, they felt whole. When they finally parted, it wasn't out of discomfort but out of the need to breathe, to absorb the magnitude of what had just changed between them. They rested their foreheads together again, eyes closed, breaths shaky but synchronized. Ilara opened her eyes first, finding Adrian already watching her with a depth she had never forgotten. "What happens now?" she whispered, not in fear but in a tender wonder. Adrian smiled, slow, warm, full of new beginnings. "Whatever you want," he murmured. "Whatever we choose. Together." The word together echoed inside her chest like a soft melody, one she realized she had been waiting to hear for far too long. He took her hand, fingers entwining naturally, effortlessly, as though the years had never created distance. They began to walk slowly across the bridge, side by side, warmed not just by physical closeness but by a connection reignited beneath the midnight sky. The burden she'd been carrying for so long felt lighter, almost lifted. Adrian's presence, his warmth, his quiet certainty, everything felt right in a way that didn't demand explanation. As they neared the end of the bridge, Adrian paused. With a small smile, he lifted his phone. "Ilara," he said softly. She turned, slightly shy, slightly flustered, but undeniably glowing. "Look here." She faced him, and he captured her smile, the soft smile of someone who had rediscovered a piece of her heart. "This," he whispered, "is where our story begins again." And so, beneath the midnight sky, wrapped in silent magic and tender hope, two souls walked off the bridge, not as strangers, not as old memories, but as new beginnings waiting to unfold.